I'm Liz Cornish, and today I will be the special guest host of the NoPixAfterDark podcast, and I have a very special guest today, Aaron Dante. We'll be right back after these special messages.
No Picks After Dark is sponsored by Snug Books, an independent bookstore serving Northeast Baltimore and beyond. In addition to featuring new books for all ages, the store also carries cards, stationery, gifts, games, and more. Visit snugbooks.com to shop online, learn more about the store, read our latest newsletter, and find a calendar of events, or come browse the store in person. Snug Books is located at 4717 Harford Road, next to Zeke's Coffee in Hamilton, Laurelville. There is free parking behind the store, and opening hours are Tuesday through Sunday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m.
The No Picks After Dark podcast is proudly partnered with Maggie's Farm, located at 4341 Hartford Road. Maggie's Farm offers a unique dining experience with delicious handcrafted cocktails and mouth-watering cuisine, from falafels to scallops and everyone's favorites, honey sriracha cauliflower wings. Open for dinner from 4 p.m. until 10 p.m., Tuesday through Saturday, and for brunch, Saturday from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m., and Sunday from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. with delectable chicken and waffles, shrimp and grits, biscuits and gravy, and more. Check out Maggie's Farm on Instagram and Facebook for daily and weekly food specials.
Hi, Aaron.
Hey, what's going on?
So first of all, how does it feel to be on the other side of your interview podcast?
I'm sweating right now. I'm a little nervous. It's 100 degrees outside. It feels like 120 degrees in here now because you're about to grill me with some questions. So I'm a little sweating, but we'll make it through. Thank you so much for doing this.
Absolutely. So, of course, this came about. We've had a couple of really great conversations, and it was really funny because we hadn't chatted in a while, and it was very serendipitous. And you were on my mind, and I was like, I got to reach out to Aaron and just see how he's doing. But I also, in the back of my mind, was, I have this idea, and I've listened to your podcast, and you're a great interviewer. But sometimes hearing your story can sort of enrich the audience's experience listening. And, who are you? And what is your perspective on Baltimore? And what makes you excited to keep doing this work? So I've got lots of questions. And then we met for coffee. And you had the same idea. It was very weird. And so you were like, I think I want you to interview me for this podcast. And I was like, great, because I already had that idea. So,
great minds think alike.
Absolutely.
And, the reason why I chose you, because I think you are very in tune with the Baltimore scene. You know what's going on. And we've had amazing conversations. And every time I walk around in conversations, I'm always like, damn, I wish I had more time to talk longer. Yeah. And you kind of want more. So I was like, why not have somebody who is just really loves the city, loves everything about the city, and listens to the podcast and kind of wants to know a little bit more questions that people probably are asking, but really don't have time to ask or whatnot. So.
Yeah. So when I thought about, what kind of direction I wanted to take this interview, I thought, I listen to a lot of interview podcasts. That is just sort of the medium that I tend to like. And every host has their own style. A lot of them have a specific structure, in the way they like to ask questions. Full disclosure, I've never done this.
You're doing great. You're doing great right now.
But I thought about, what do I want to know about Aaron? And what do I think is really important for listeners of your podcast to understand? Because I think, who gets to ask the questions, I think is a really interesting thing for everybody to ponder on when they're consuming media. And getting to know you, I think, provides context, not only in, how did you create this podcast, but how are you sustaining it? How do you keep it fresh? And I think the most important question is, what's your why? Why do you do this podcast? And so we'll get there because I think that's a bigger question. And I think that's where we're going to head. So I think one of the things that really shaped me and some of the media that I keep going back to, when we were growing up, we're about the same age.
Right.
80s babies.
80s, yes.
And when we were growing up, podcasts didn't exist. And, the closest I think we got was like the Barbara Walters interviews
Are you going
on 2020.
You're showing our age right now. You're
Yeah.
really showing our age.
And like, everybody would watch them, no
Right.
matter, like, every house in America, given their background, it was very, very, like, people were into it. And I think it's because people want to know people's interior lives. It's just natural human nature. So I'm curious, I think there's a thing, what did you listen to or watch growing up? What kind of media did you consume that you think shapes your approach to this podcast? And maybe, what are you listening to or consuming now that continues to shape your approach?
Wow, that's a great question. Wow, you got me thinking about the 80s now. So this is interesting. So when I was growing up, this is my age group now, I used to watch Donahue.
Oh my God.
Right, so Donahue was like the opposite of Oprah, and I used to watch Oprah because my grandmother was like, at 4 o'clock, Oprah's on. Ain't nobody else but Oprah coming on. So I used to study and watch Oprah and watch her questions, understand how she had the audience captivated, how you hung on to every little word she said. Donahue was a little bit more controversial, a little more at it, going at it, but it was like interesting. How did they keep our attention? How did they keep you watching? Why did you want to tune in and watch it? I remember watching Barbara Walters, everyone, the joke was Barbara Walters. So, and that'd be the late night, like, when she interviewed, like, Bobby and Whitney and, it's like, she got that interview? So you grew up on all those things in the 80s and 90s. You're like, yo, this is kind of dope. Like, I never thought I would be doing this now, but it shaped me to, like, understanding. I used to watch Ricky Lake, I used to watch all those shows because that was my grandmother when I was younger. Summertime, I'd come back to Baltimore, and I would be working at my family store, 15, 16 years old, and every 4 o'clock, it was Oprah. And Barbara Walters had 8 o'clock special on ABC. Guess what? We were watching ABC.
Yeah.
So, again, Donahue, Donahue, he was wild. Even watching Judge Wapner. Like, I mean, we're going back old school. We're going to go back old school for you. So I think a lot of those people shaped me, but I also think the realest biggest shape were my uncles who, I mean, if you met them, I mean, God bless, none of my uncles are alive today. Unfortunately, it was 8 of them, 7 of them. But they would be the most, I'll tell anybody, you can sit there and be amazed of their storytelling. And it was a gift of it. And the gift of storytelling is just something that people have or you don't, you do or don't. People are like, well, you can learn how to tell a story. Yeah, you can learn, but can you keep them captivated? And people have to have that charisma about it. Something has to draw you to that person. Why do you go back listening to that person? Why do you want to go back? Do you want more?
Right.
And that's where I learned just being the charisma, having the No Pixar Dark. That was a party, 10 years. People, they want to know what's going to happen next year.
Yeah.
How are we going to top it every year? What are these guys going to do this year? So you always want to captivate, get people drawn in. And I guess I'm a very big extrovert, but I don't know if I am now because the pandemic got me changed. Like,
Interesting.
I'm kind of like weirded out by people a little bit more. Like, just with so much thing going on in society, I'm not going to get into all that, but that's where the storytellings come from. Always when you're telling a story, it's not like when you were in college and you're telling a story and everybody's listening. And I was that guy. I was telling stories. And so I had the knack of having that personality that was natural. And this podcast just is a natural fit.
Right, because I think there's a difference between, somebody just sitting a camera in front of you and say, Aaron, tell me your story, versus somebody guiding you through that process. And I think that's probably why so many people were captivated by those interview shows in the 80s and 90s, is because they were giving us, they had access and they had power that allowed them to ask the questions that you wouldn't get from a typical interview, or even sort of the PR machine creating an image of a celebrity or sort of a controversial public figure. And so I do think that's some of the interesting things about the power that somebody that even you can hold in terms of, and it's good and bad, right?
Yeah, it's good and bad. There's good and bad parts about a lot of this.
Tell me about that. What's that dynamic when you're able to sit across from somebody and you're not telling your story, but you're drawing their story out of them? What are some of the things that you're thinking about in order to make sure that you get a cohesive narrative from people and that you get the questions answered that you think are most important?
You have to make somebody comfortable. You got to make comfortable. You got to sit down with them, have that pre-conversation before the cameras roll, and let's have a conversation. We're not too much different. We're not too much different. We're more alike than anything. And you just want to comfort them and say, hey, what do you need? You want to go get some coffee? You want to go get some water? Let's hang out. Let's get the nervousness out the way. Always like a pre-conversation with everybody I talk with. I'd rarely go into an interview like just no thoughts, no questions, because it may not fit. There's some episodes where I'm like, in the beginning I did it, and I was like, oh. Some interviews I'm like, I'm ready for this to be over in like 10 minutes. How do I get through this interview?
Right.
My dude over on the left, Paul, can tell you. There's some episodes that we've been and we're like, whew, but you don't see it through when I'm doing it. It's like, this is all the stuff that's going through my mind. When you're talking with people, are like, well, let's do an interview. No, okay, like, everybody wants to talk, but it doesn't make sense. Would it be a good story? Is it going to be a good story? I tell people the bad is I get over 100 messages a week. It's kicked up to the point where I took a whole month off.
Right.
Because I needed me time, and I still couldn't get me time. Because people still want a piece of, all right, I want to be on the show. And for every artist in the world, there's another politician in the world. For every politician in the world, there's an activist. For every community organizer, there's somebody else. And everybody wants to tell a story. And that's what the podcast originally started with. I never try to fight the podcast. I try to let it flow, but keep what I built same. You have some people who are like, well, I wanted to do a podcast interview, but I want to do it this way. And I'm like, then you can do your own way. There's plenty of other podcasters out here. You can do it. You can do it that way. You know what? It is what it is. I mean, do I regret not doing it? Maybe, but now if you say, hey, Aaron, I'll pay you $200, $300, and we do it this way, then you know what? Sure, you want to do it this way, but not for me, not for you to look better, not for you on my time, because one thing I've learned this year is time is precious, and I don't want to waste your time or my time. And if it's not right, the vibe's not right, I'm not going to waste your time.
Yeah.
And go ahead, sorry.
Oh, no. Finish your thought.
No, I'm good.
Okay.
I'm good.
So, in thinking about that, so one of the things that came to mind was there's been this whole hustle culture, that we have been raised in. And I think a lot of people push people to monetize a creative effort. And so if you become good at something creatively, then you're like, well, how can I make money? Or I have my job, and then I have my creative endeavors. And I'm curious, what was the thing that made you want to take that leap where really you have a creative idea, something you wanted to make, there was something missing in the landscape that you wanted to fill. And how was that decision made to say, I want this to be something that's more formal, maybe more professionalized, something that I run independently as an entrepreneur. You go from craft to entrepreneur. That's a journey, right?
It is.
So what was the impetus? Like, was there something that happened, or was there a sort of an internal dialogue that you had for a while?
That's a real good question. I'm thinking back when I started in 2019. It's 2022 now. It was fun. It was for fun. Buy a couple toys, a couple mics. My first mics were from Amazon. Nothing, just Shure mic? No, I mean, we're on Shure mics right now. Like, what? Look around where we are right now. This was not in the plan.
Right.
None of this was. The camera guy, come on, this guy costs too much money to get me. But again, all seriousness, like, what happened? So what happened was there was a need. There was an outcry. There was something that people were like, you have something. You have a natural knack. You have a gift. You have something that we really enjoy. Keep on doing it. And, I always remember, and God bless his soul, Trevor White, who passed away tragically in Baltimore. He was a big person who really believed in what I was doing. He was on a Remix Bar and Grill. He really believed in what I was doing. I remember having a lot of conversations with him. And he was like, Aaron, hey, he would say, hey, he wouldn't call me Aaron, hey, you got it, man. You got the voice. Use it. And I didn't even believe myself at that time.
Right.
But for a business owner who was very successful to tell me that, and who I respected, like, really? He's like, listen, man, you have it. You have the people. I've shared your podcast with people. They love it. You know, he had his friends from Boston College who are trying to go into the industry. Call me.
Mm-hmm.
Get my advice from me about what I'm doing, how I'm doing. How the guys going to right now, the National Black Journalist is in. They're having a convention in Vegas. I had 2 guys call me before they went there to ask me about a couple things.
Yeah.
These are
That's
journalists. These are journalists who are calling me and asking me advice.
Well, I mean, do you think you're a journalist?
You know, that may be a whole. A whole different podcast in itself. That's a good question, though. We'll come back to that, though. That's a good one. I like that one. Wow. But let me get back to your original. That's a good one, though. You know, I don't really know. Like, it just people. I knew I had a natural knack to talk to people and the gift of gab. And the hustle, you know, hustle. And I thought it was just for fun. I really did. I didn't think anything of it. It was for my son, who I love to death. I wanted him to hear stories about all these amazing people that his dad's known. I'm trying to get one of our mutual people, Eton Thomas, on the show. We're trying to get him on. So, again, it's those type of things that people that I knew.
Uh-huh.
It never was out to be somebody who I didn't know.
Sure.
Know. And then in 2020... when I won Best of Baltimore for Baltimore Sun, it was like, damn,
Right.
this got real. And then 2020, when Baltimore Magazine. And I'm going to tell you why this is most important to me when those 2 that year. What happened in 2020 was the COVID.
Yeah.
And guess what? Everybody was home.
Mm-hmm.
That means people had time to listen to podcasts. That year winning both of those awards means the most to me because I know people sat down and listened. And when people were telling me about this and this and that, you have a great show, keep on pushing. I was like, we may have something here.
Yeah.
And then when I sold over 200 shirts,
Yeah.
I was like, we got something.
And I think that speaks to the medium. You know, the medium of the interview podcast is people were really starved to have a conversation with somebody else, particularly conversations that I would kind of consider novel, right? Like we kept up the conversations maybe with our close friends and family. There were tools to do that. But part of the thing that I appreciate about Baltimore is that in my neighborhood, I walk around and there's somebody new to talk to. I can show up to that bar without a friend. I can show up to that event without a friend. And I run into people I know and I get an opportunity to hear how they're doing. So I think, you know, that's probably the niche that you filled. And I think we're all better for it.
Well, you know, I told somebody that we mutually know, her name's Celeste, and I saw her at Live Baltimore party recently. I said, let me tell you something. I want to thank you. She's like, what do you mean? I was like, I never told you this. You didn't know who I was at all, and you posted on Twitter. If you want to know anything about Baltimore and what's going on in Baltimore, you need to go follow NoPixAfterDarkPodcast. That's a whole different audience that I never knew of that wanted to listen. And she put that on her social media. And I remember when that popped up, I was like, who is this lady? But it was the work that I put in. It was the work that I worked hard and got to where I got to. And it's a blessing every day.
Yeah.
I don't take any of this for granted at all. Anybody that works with me who knows what I do, I'm a student of a lot of this. I listen to a lot of different shows. I listen to a lot of people. I watch media. So I guess I'm gonna go off the Draymond Green. His new thing is new media. He calls it from the Golden State Warriors. He calls it new media.
Wow.
So I guess we'll be the new media. I guess, and a lot of media people don't like that, but I am media because I'll let to go listen to somewhere else. And even when friends from Australia, never met them a day in my life, but they always show love, and they're one of the biggest podcasts in Australia. And they always say, Aaron, let's do something. Let's do a comedy. They just interviewed the guy, what's his name from Nope, the director. These are people who respect in the industry. They know who you are. It's a blessing. I take nothing for granted every day. That's a blessing.
I think that's a great time to pause. We're going to take a short break, and then we will be back with Aaron. Or A. We'll be back with A.
When you give to United Way, your gift could be the first spark of something bigger. It can help provide nutritious food for a family in need. Because eating healthy shouldn't be a luxury. It can help someone with housing challenges and be a catalyst for a new beginning. Because a safe space to call home is the foundation for building a better future. Give today. Spark something bigger.
The No Picks After Dark podcast is fueled by Zeke's Coffee. Have you tried their coffee yet? I'm telling you, there's something different about it. Maybe it's because they roast their beans in a fluid coffee roaster, which provides the most accurate roasting temperatures and made with love. You will just have to check it out for yourself and try their delicious food while you're at it. Open now for curbside service, online ordering, carry out, and they also do wholesale. Visit Zeke's Coffee at 4719 Hartford Road. Open Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. and Sunday, 8 to 5 p.m. Kitchen closes at 3 p.m. or visit Zeke'sCoffee.com and you too can be fueled by Zeke's. OpenWorks is Baltimore's largest makerspace, offering access to tools ranging from 3D printers to welder, and training in how to use them. OpenWorks also offers affordable studio space, a coffee shop, and fun-free events throughout the year. But OpenWorks is more than a public workshop. It's a community of creative professionals, students, seniors, entrepreneurs, and makers of all kinds. Check out the website at www.openworksbmore.org or Instagram at open_works_bmore for class schedules, membership options, and more.
So I think listening to you, one of the things that really propelled you to keep this going and sort of, take this to the next level was that people were craving those stories about what's happening in Baltimore. And my theory is that people need to hear good stories about Baltimore. People need to be reminded that even though they may not see it, even though it may not be in their immediate neighborhood or social circle, they want to hear those stories. It's about keeping up the faith in the city that we love. And I'm curious, so I think some people in Baltimore, in order to stay engaged and keep that energy, they need boosterism, right?
Okay.
Like they need the parties, they need the hashtag I love Baltimore. They need that type of energy. Some people need to keep it real to keep their energy up around Baltimore, because otherwise sometimes you feel like you're being gaslit, right?
Right.
There are challenges, they're serious, they're real. And in order for me to stay engaged, I need other people around me that are reflecting that back. What keeps you engaged in Baltimore? What keeps you having hope in Baltimore? I mean, is that a spectrum you fall on? Because you can also describe it a different way. There's the A or B or none of the above.
No. I'm thinking about it. I think it's interesting, the interesting people in Baltimore that sometimes we may not have access to. It goes back to what you said earlier, access. And when you have access to certain people, that's what makes it very interesting. That re-energizes me. That pushes me to go on and move on. Like, for instance, I'm doing, for this season, it'll already be out by that time, but the interview with Alex Smith, that's going to energize a lot of people in Baltimore. Because that's a one-on-one with
Interesting
everybody.
word, energize.
Yes. So Alex Smith, that would be somebody that energizes the audience, and I think that will get people thinking. That's
a creative choice, right?
right.
Being strategic about who you bring on when, sort of the order of people, how you might release episodes. What are some of the things that help you create that editorial calendar, to use like an industry word in media?
So what I do is, once I have a whole list of names. I keep it in my house and I put it on the wall. And I look at everybody and see, how do they match up? What makes sense? Does it make sense to come out with something now or something later? give you an example, squeegee situation. This season, am I going to talk about it? I don't know, because the news cycle changes so quickly. Is it? Do I wait until the mayor has his 90-day
Right.
comeback and then bring it back out? So you get to like figure out what makes sense during the time, or what's timeless that you can drop in right away and it won't affect at any time.
I think that's wisdom, right? Because I think, similar to you, when you are in the mix and you do have access, people want to know your opinion about everything. And, you have proximity, you have access. What do you think about it? But as I've gotten more wise, I've understood that, am I really the right person? Am I really, the person that needs to weigh in on this? What do you think about that when you are choosing topics? Like, is that part of the thing of like, am I going to add to the conversation or am I going to detract?
When I bring on somebody to interview, I want to make sure you walk away thinking about it like, wow, okay, why did Aaron interview this person? And I want them to walk away like, interesting. I never thought about that way. I don't try to go either way. I try to stay down the middle on certain things. Other interviews, you can know which way I'm leaning.
Yeah.
The way I'm asking certain questions. But with certain interviews, I'm like, hey, you figure it out. You walk away. You come away with your own analysis. And then whatever you think, cool. I'm not going to give you should think this way. That's not my job. My job is to, oh, wow, I didn't know this about this person. Oh, wow, I'm learning. Oh, wow, I didn't know that. Oh, I didn't know this person was here. That's my job, to inform you and educate you. And then you take it from there.
Yeah. So that's what you hope listeners take away.
I hope so.
And when you are interviewing people, I guess it sounds like it's really important for you to take a step back and maybe not insert your own beliefs or your own sort of thoughts about a particular issue in that moment. Like that may not be the goal. So now that we're interviewing you, what's something that surprised you? What's something that you believed that you walked away from an interview either questioning or changing your beliefs?
Just dealing with politicians. You see a different side of them when the camera's not on. And it's very interesting. And knowing that they have very trust issues when they talk with people. And they're very careful how they talk. But I'm learning that once you are in those circles, they'll talk a little bit more around you. Freely. But they know that you're not come out and say something that was repeated there. So, give you an example. And a real quick one is going to Mako, the Maryland conference is down in Ocean City. I got vetted to go down there. And they vetted me. The guy said straight up, hey, we want to know who you were, what you're all about. And we asked Mayor Brandon Scott about you. We asked his team about you. And they said that we liked you. Aaron's a good spokesperson for Baltimore City.
Yeah.
To me, I mean, I hope that answers the question. It changes your mind and perspective of seeing how people see you.
Yeah.
And then they see you a little bit differently. And now I'm seeing myself a lot differently because people always tell you have, as they say in the movie The Juice, Tupac, you got the juice. But do you really have the juice? I don't know yet.
What do you see in terms of how that has changed your creative approach, sort of when you started to know?
I used to be carefree, more reckless. Now it's more strategic. Now it's more defined questions, more things that I look at that make sense. Listeners want to know a little bit more instead of cookie cutter. They want me to engage and push back. And I'm learning a lot of that. And these things you learn over time. And every interview is just a different interview. You just got to go into it. And you get to you study the person a lot. You look at their interviews, look at past interviews. So when you interviewed me, I was looking at all your past interviews in Baltimore Sun. And
I was on the other.
But you study the words though. You study you study their mannerisms. You start learning. You become that person to understand what they're going to ask and how they're going to ask and if they're going to answer that question.
Yeah, I think that was, and thinking about to what you said, I used to be an extrovert, and now I think the current unprecedented times might have made me more introverted. I think for me, and this might go back to what we're talking about like monetizing your creative idea or your dream. What does that mean? And I think for me, during the pandemic, I switched jobs. And I went from being a very public figure to being totally behind the scenes, and I couldn't be happier. And I think that is kind of the same thing. And I think it's wisdom with age. I think when we're younger, we're told to strive, strive, strive. And then you get there and you're like,
I don't want it.
you're like, wow, I don't.
Well, I mean,
I'm tired.
just with you, just having that one first conversation I had with you, like you said some things that stuck that was scared me. But then it started happening. And I like when you said it, I kind of knew what you were saying, but I played it off like whatever.
What do you mean?
We don't have to get into that. But you said some things that stuck to me, and I was like, we need to talk again.
Yeah.
Her and I need to talk again because and it happened. It happened essentially every way you said it was going to happen. And it was scary because I was like, wow. Because you were a public figure. You were doing big things. You're still doing amazing things in Baltimore. And I just look at some things wisdom. You learn, you listen. And I've learned to listen, not speak so much. Listen and understand. And just people can be telling you something not directly, but they're telling you, you just got to figure out and pick the crumbs up and understand what they're saying to you.
Yeah, I think that's really important. That's probably something that you have to tease out when you're interviewing someone. Which version of them are they giving you? And is that the right version that you wanted to interview?
Right.
And how do you get them to switch gears? Right. And I think that's a talent. And, but I also think, I wouldn't be doing this interview justice if we stayed just to the questions about your medium, just to the questions about your show. So I think what's really interesting in terms of, how do you get them to go where you want to go? So I'm going to see if I'm good at that.
Okay.
What breaks your heart about Baltimore?
Crime. It upsets me every day. Seeing lives just lost. One of the good friends just got killed senselessly. It really. I could have quit tomorrow. That's how I felt.
Yeah.
I felt heartbroken. I felt like this is like out of control. What are we doing? And senseless deaths. That breaks my heart every single day. And that's why I don't turn news on. I can't watch it. I think even when Donald Trump said Baltimore was a shithole, that didn't do it. I mean, that didn't move anything for me. It was kind of like, all right, cool. Like, he was giving me heart palpitations every day, But you know what I mean? But like in general, it's crime and poverty.
Yeah.
That's just heartbreaking every day. And, I don't know, that breaks my heart. It really does.
What gives you hope about Baltimore?
People that I've met, people that have been on the show, people who want things great for Baltimore, people that I have coffee with. I call it coffee club, no picks. So like or tabling. That's what we do. These people give me hope every day when I have these conversations. I have conversations with so many amazing people in the city, like yourself. I mean, look how we've connected, and I've known about so the funny part, I've known about you for a while. You know who I was. But people like yourself who have done the work, and you aspire to, hey, hope my work is out there like that. And that's what gives me hope. Hope is when I'm at AFRAM, people are saying, we love your show. And you have no idea who they are.
Yeah.
That's hope. That's like, keep on doing what you're doing. We need you. That's what pushes me. No magazine. No.
But it's also responsibility, right?
It
like
is.
When people say, I love your show, you have a responsibility to keep providing the thing that lifts them up. What does that feel like? What does it feel like to have that responsibility?
It's a lot. It's a lot of responsibility. I find myself doing a lot more research on my guests, a lot more time doing homework, sitting in the studio, looking over, scanning, understanding a little bit more about people. and try to find somebody who's like, wow, this is a great subject. You know, you can recycle a lot of people, but let's not. You get tired of it. You know, so my next move is I'm doing more of a DC thing.
Interesting.
I'm doing more of a Lancaster, PA thing. I'm expanding the NoPixAfterDark brand.
And what was the impetus for that? What made you want to do that?
You got to grow.
Interesting.
You got to grow. You got to grow.
What are some stories that you think you're going to be able to, you know, the conversations, what are some of the conversations you're going to be able to have with people in DC that you think will resonate with your Baltimore audience?
There's some things that I'm working on right now that I can't say yet.
Okay.
But go on, try to pull it out me. But I'm working with some people right now. The interviews will be coming out, and it'll be good. It'll talk about a little about the DC culture, the environment, the arts. A quick trip if you want to go out of town for a day. Let's go to DC. Let's go to the Arena DC and go check out Frederick Douglass. I just saw that other night. Amazing. Like it probably one of the best shows I've seen in a long time. And,
I think I forget that too. You know, that it's literally like a MARC train right away, or, you know, hop in a car, and it's depending on where you want to go, it's so nearby, and there is that cultural center. My joke about DC though is that your social life is going to people's going away parties.
Right. Nobody's ever stays there.
Everybody's transient. And so you go to the going away party, you meet somebody great, you're friends with them, and then 6 months later you're going to their going away party.
Well,
and that's transient. And I think Baltimore's different. It's certainly the place that I've lived the longest. I've lived in 12 cities prior to coming here. And I'm on year 7. And it's the longest place I've ever lived. And the other story that I tell that I don't think happened in DC is that within the first year I lived here, I knew more of my neighbors than anywhere else I've ever lived. And some things I think contribute to that are the architecture, like how are our houses built? We share walls. I think that, you know, our houses are oriented to the street, the stoops, the porches. And the neighborhood that I live in and that feeling, whether it's the businesses or my neighbors themselves, that keeps me here, even when I feel frustrated. So talk about your neighborhood. What do you love about your neighborhood?
I mean, I love Northeast Baltimore. I've lived here since 2005. The first place I lived, it's hard to toss up. You know, I always tell the story about how my neighbor one night, I left my door unlocked, and my neighbor was outside smoking a cigarette at 3 o'clock in the morning. Young kids are walking by my car, open the car door. My neighbor says, "Is that your car?" The kid looks around, keeps it moving. This is a community was just unlike any other. You know, people really cared. They respected, like, I mean, I'm out there with an edge clipper mowing my lawn. Like, you're proud of your lawn. Little things like that people just don't understand. The power of just people saying good morning, Mr. Ma'am, Miss. It's just a great feeling.
I think that is true. And I think even when I'm outside of my neighborhood, that connection, and frankly, that was the thing that made me so passionate about creating a walkable, bikeable city, is that's how I got to know people, right? Like, I am out of my car and I'm physically close to people that I probably wouldn't otherwise be in proximity to, and we're having those friendly conversations. And so between walking my dog and biking and walking around the city, met so many different interesting people. Who do you think the most interesting person in Baltimore is right now? Who are you intrigued? I'll say this. Who are you most intrigued by? And that could be a person, or that could be an issue, and the people working on that issue. Interpret that as broadly as you want. But what's most intriguing to you right now about Baltimore?
You come with the hard-hitting questions now. I'm going to drink some water now. Wow. And I've met so many amazing people.
And it's not static, so I don't want people to feel like they're winning like best of
No.
So it just could be right now, like in this moment.
Wow, that's a good question. That's a very good question. Repeat it one more time, just so I can think this through. Who is the most intriguing?
Who is most intriguing to you at the moment? Things that you're questioning or things that you're interested in learning more about. And that could be a person, that could be an issue, that could be a neighborhood.
You know what? I would say, and this is going to be so generic,
That's okay.
is Westmore.
I think that's a good answer.
We've met at AFRAM.
I was on his radio show once.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, I'm curious. I'm so curious about him. You know, a lot of people say he gives me the Obama feels. A lot of people say they give the guy from what's the guy from Florida before he got in trouble? He ran for
God,
governor.
what was his
Ran for
name?
governor. I can't. Somebody's going to know it, and I should know this. But
Now we're both failing.
Now we're failing miserably. But he ran for governor in Florida. Those feels. And the crazy thing is, I met Westmore before he even started running. Like you see, you were on a radio show. We were at a Prince concert, and he was sitting in front of me. It was the last concert with Prince. And I said, "Hey, man, how are you?" Blah, 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 blah. He doesn't know this to this day that we met.
Yeah.
He probably doesn't remember we met that day. And that's when I met him. So then I'm in an AFRAM, and then I met him again at Live Baltimore party. He's like, "I know who you are."
Okay.
He's like, and he's very intriguing. And if he does win, he has it's an interesting competition. You have extremists, far right. So now get the answer. Now we're getting Maryland intrigues me.
Yep.
Maryland intrigues me. That's the answer. Final answer, Maryland, because we're gonna find out what Maryland's really about this November, and how many of your neighbors sit out, and that's gonna be really interesting. How many people vote this month, this election, in Maryland? Maryland. That is who I'm really intrigued with. The state of Maryland.
I want to back up real quick. I've also seen Prince. How surprised were you about how short he was?
Very surprised, and
I was also very surprised.
I was in tears because I love Prince, and it was him. He just the most amazing ever on the show. But yes,
backing it up and broadening out to who you are. Besides Prince, what was the best concert you've ever been to?
Foo Fighters, Madison Square Garden, 2004.
I've heard they put on a really good live show. I think people discount them. I'm not a big fan, but
great show.
I've heard good things.
The stage was a guitar.
Okay.
And at the end, he had his drums at the end, and it was dope. Also, it's gonna sound weird. Bruce Springsteen at the Stone Pony.
That is not weird.
Well, no, you're not weird, but I'm not a Bruce fan.
Okay.
But
that's okay.
I lived in Jersey, so I had to go.
Yep.
The Stone Pony was only, but the crazy part was he just copped in and played. So it wasn't like a real. It was like a real like just him rocking out playing, and nobody knew like he was gonna show up. So it was kind of dope.
Yeah, I think that's an indication of the way you think about art and the way you think about music is you can recognize skill or talent or importance without it having to be connected to your personal preference.
Right.
And I think that's critical to what you do. You may not agree with everyone that you invite on your show, but you can recognize the stories that are going to be most important to people.
Foo Fighters is not on my playlist, or Bruce Springsteen,
Right.
not even my playlist.
Sure.
But they were the best concerts that I've ever seen. Better than any hip hop concert, and I'm a hip hop head, like historian. But those concerts stick out the most, and just Madison Square Garden, it blew me away, and I would go back and see it again in a heartbeat. Foo Fighters.
I would go with you.
Please.
We need to find a benefactor to pay for our tickets.
Yes, we do. If you're listening out there, holla at us. I love it.
We need a benefactor. What podcast are you listening to right now?
Wow. So there's a couple urban ones I like from Baltimore. It's called Weeding Answers. It's very West Baltimore. They talk about people who were really part of The Wire. And I learned so much from this guy and the people who have gone through so much in Baltimore. And it gives me inspiration. A lot of these people have gotten through, and they talk about the fights, the things they've gotten through, how they're now business owners. And so I like listening to his show. Young guy, really good, just really savvy. they drink, they chill, they party, they have a good time. But that's very hyper local.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think outside of Baltimore. This this podcast called Girl in the Gov. It's two
I
women
heard about
who
that.
do a really, really good job at talking about politics. And they just tell you this is women's vote, find out, and learn a little bit more about it. I used to listen to Daily. Daily is, it's one of the things where I'll sit down, it's quick, to the point.
Right.
So I like the Daily a lot. Trying to think, that's about it right now. I mean,
Yeah.
in
There's so
rotation.
much.
There's so many, and that's why you have to figure out how to figure out your niche.
Yeah.
And where do you stand.
I agree. And then you can get in a rut and you miss those new voices. So I really appreciate learning about new podcasts that you're listening to. Those will be all new for me.
You probably never listened to them.
And I think similar to yours, it's how someone like me, Baltimore can be insular. As much as you think I know the city or I care about the city broadly, you have to work very hard to get out of your bubble and to make those connections and to hear the stories of the people that don't live in your neighborhood, from the people that may share a different perspective on politics or really sensitive issues. And so I think that is your gift, is bringing those types of stories to us. Because, if you're going to love your city, you've got to know it.
You do.
And I think that's a gift. And so I appreciate that. And I know.
Two more. I'm sorry. Two more. I
Oh,
forgot.
great.
The Pivot. It's
Okay.
more of a sports thing that comes on. That's really, really good. It's a really good show. Ryan Clark is on ESPN. Shannon. It's a really good. And the Drink Champs. Now that's a whole different. That's Nori, who's our former hip hop, but he had Patti LaBelle on the last. Patti LaBelle, and they're in there drinking, and he's had Kanye on there. They have everybody as hip hop. So that's when I go on a different side. It's like this is really dope. So sorry, interrupt
No,
you.
that's fine. Throw them out there. All right. Kind of rapid fire.
Okay.
Snowball flavor.
Banana.
Marshmallow or no marshmallow?
No marshmallow.
Interesting. Crab cakes or sitting and picking crabs?
Let's go. Let's sit down, eat some crabs, and chill, and let's enjoy each other's company. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Let's do it. Let's
Definitely
talk.
a social process.
Let's do it.
Where do you like to have, what place in Baltimore inspires you to have these conversations? Where do you get your okay, I'll rephrase that. Where do you get your best ideas?
Sit in this room. That's why I got it. Sit here. I play a little music.
It's a great space, and I think that that's really important, and I think that's good advice for creative people. Sometimes you got to get out of the house.
Yeah.
Especially
I like coming here. I like to sit here. I like to have a glass of wine, play some music, and I just look at these paintings and drawings, and then I look at what makes sense. And it's just peace of mind.
Can I come co-work with you? Because that sounds great.
It is. It's a dope feeling. You're listening to music. You're just sitting here, and it's just quietness, and you're like, all right, it's a good reset. This is the first time I've been here in a month.
Oh, that's interesting. That must have meant that it was a month ago that we talked, or that was the last time I was here.
Yeah.
You might have been there between. I don't remember.
A month. I haven't been here.
Time means nothing at this point.
I haven't been here. Yeah. What's time? I haven't been here because I wanted to get away from my mind clear.
Yeah. So speaking of time, we're winding down, and I want to leave folks with an opportunity to do what I think is the most important in terms of what stories you're telling and how you want to tell them. And now it's your turn to be a story that we tell. And what's your parting word? What do you hope people take away from your podcast or this interview?
That I'm a real person. I'm just like everybody else. I just am fortunate and blessed to have the opportunity to talk with amazing people like yourself an opportunity to work with amazing camera people that really believe in my vision, and come along with this ride. It has just begun, and I'm excited for what's going to happen this season, because the season has some amazing episodes that you're going to be like,
I'm looking forward to it.
you're like, okay, I get it. Like, I get it. And I got a really cool sponsor that I'm pinching myself right now.
Great.
So I want people to walk away like, this guy's just like you and me, just a normal guy. I get coffee all the time. I go to Maggie's farm. I'm a normal person. I just love my neighborhood. So that's what I walk away with. And if you haven't listened, then take a chance. Listen. It's like Baskin Robbins. By this time, probably 190 episodes are out. 190 different flavors for you.
And I definitely, encourage people, find that person that makes you have hard conversations, and find that person that makes you think differently when you walk away from those. And that's certainly what I appreciate most about our friendship. And I just want to thank you for inviting me to do this. I've learned a lot, and I hope your listeners do too. And I can't wait to hear it come out. And, everybody doesn't like the sound of their own voice. So I can't wait for it to come out, and then close my ears when I'm listening to the part where I speak. But again, thank you so much, Aaron. I know I appreciate you, and certainly all of us in Baltimore appreciate what you do and what you give to us. And I hope you know that, and I hope you can take that with you, even on the days when that responsibility weighs on you.
Thank you. Appreciate you.